All right. Hello. I think I got my audio sorted out. For some reason, they disconnected from their sources. Let's see. Can we still hear me? All right. Hello in chat to Gumps and Little Redhead. Hello. Okay, cool. Got that sorted out. Fun. Okay. Challenges in streaming. Okay, so hello and welcome to Plugin Along, a stream dedicated to LOTRO plugins. Last time on Plugin Along, we figured out what bugs or issues stood in the way of releasing this Priority Anthem feature we've been working on for a little while here for the Minstrel buff plugin. Oh, there's a cat behind me. All right, I'll rotate a little bit. And so we put that together, a list of things, and then we actually made progress on the first item. So today, I'd like to chip away at that list some more, because once all of those issues are resolved, then it's time to release the features to the wild. So, as always, feel free to jump into chat with your thoughts and questions. And for now, who is messaging me? Someone who wants a kinvite. Okay. Bam. Well, that's my fault. I did say, hey, message me later about that. It's later, suckers. All right. Cool. Yes, and good. All right. So let's go ahead and kind of review where we are. And also, we can see there's an error message that came up when I first loaded. So that's exciting. In fact, it's after I transitioned to the neighborhood. Maybe when I mounted up. Ooh, maybe it's when I mounted up. Yes. Awesome. So we can replicate that simply by mounting a horse. Something that happens from time to time. So let's go ahead and pull up our source code for the Minstrel Buff plugin so that we can make a note about that. Let's see, what was I working on? I was working on the deed tracker earlier. Let's pop open the Minstrel Buff and our to-do things. All right, so here is that to-do list. We can add one more. We get this error when mounting or unmounting. And I wonder if that's actually related to a stance change. Yes. Awesome. So we're seeing an error here. Now, we weren't seeing this last week, so either I did something bad to the code in the meantime, or this might be a release issue. And either way, we're going to get a chance to go fix it. So mounting or unmounting or changing stances. So I'm guessing we get that same callback when we mount or dismount as we do for changing stances. Speaking of stances, new in this Before the Shadow release is really fast stance changes for minstrels. So you still have to be standing still, and done. So stop, change, done. So this might actually make it worthwhile if you have some anthems to fire off to get into melody stance, because now that's going to increase your anthem duration by 15 seconds. Do a melody stance, do your anthem, and then pop back into your either resonance or dissonance stances for the full effect of those stances. Whereas before, it really felt like a slog to actually be changing stances. Also, hopefully you got a chance to take a screenshot of your trait trees, because they have been reset as a part of the Before the Shadows release. And that is because your class trait deeds no longer will be awarding trait points. They will come simply, trait points will come simply from leveling. So if we come in here to class deeds tier 1, we can see now there is no reward. I feel like they should have put something in there, but traditionally it feels like SSG is very cautious about modifying deeds at all. I'm impressed that they've gone ahead and done this. I hear there's some performance benefits that they're hoping to see by not having these deeds track all these different abilities all the time. We'll see. Yeah, so completing Dauntless, you're still getting your LOTRO points from completing your other class deeds, but these wrappers now are just a wrapper. help you track which ones are kind of eligible right now, probably. We also have a couple new class deeds. I believe Little Red Hood was telling me that now instead of getting a box that you keep on opening and opening and opening and opening as you level up, and it's sort of just sitting in your inventory taunting you, now you're just going to get a mail every increment that you could have opened it. So 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, and 51. And that'll be how you open up that gift to an adventurer type thing. So if we come into the mail, we can see I do indeed have a gift from Moria, a gift for a hero. Those do look like that. I certainly don't mind getting doubles of those. There's some cool experience buffs and whatnot in there. I'll deal with that later. But specialization is going to be important because right now I have 0 anthems, and we're going to need a couple of them. Oh, that's why we're getting this message. Not because of anything else, but I think because I have literally no anthems. And we always assumed there was going to be at least one anthem, which, to be fair, that is true most of the time. So, hang on a sec. So that's 991. So we're not going to be able to replicate this anymore if we start actually trading ourselves out. So active skill, get active skill. Oh, okay. Anthem reset time changed. Oh, no, interesting. If there is not an active skill from that, what on earth is sending it? It's nil value. Oh, interesting. So if you don't have any anthems, you still get told that your anthem reset time will change. Okay. Okay. Do we have a dump function? We do have a dump function. So let's go ahead and get those args. I'm very curious about that. Turbine.shell.writeLine, and we're just going to dump out those args so we can see what's in that table. I'm guessing nothing, but I am curious because you would hope it would tell you what it was. So get on a horse or pony. Okay. No, that's basically a nil args as well. That's fascinating. Okay. So in that case, we are going to need to, or want to take that into account. Basically, if sender equals nil, then return end. And we should document why we're doing this. Otherwise, we'll be like, that's never nil. Sender is nil if character has no anthems trained. For instance, they are too low level, or their trait trees have been reset. Cough, cough. Okay, great. Lovely edge case. I'm super glad we got to catch that. So now, if we go ahead and unload and reload, we should just not do anything with the call. We would love to track that the anthem cooldown time has changed. Not sure it actually has, but I'd love to track that, but there's no anthem skills to latch onto. And we might be able to look at untrained skills, but that whole method assumes that it's a trained skill so we can go get the cooldown and such. Okay, so now that we've gone and fixed that, and we'll commit that change in a little bit, let's go ahead and respec ourselves out. Now, for a while, SSG has been recommending you take a screenshot of your trait trees if you feel uncomfortable kind of rebuilding them from scratch or just don't want that headache. And so I did that. So let's see. Level 65 trait trees. So I've got a little, I've got my screenshot directory here, and we're just going to go ahead and respec that out real fast. Holy moly, not like that one on. Okay, so that's what I want it to look like. Oh, that's going to be, all right, new plan. Let's go ahead and just embed that in. All right, give me an image. Trait tree red. Okay, and it comes from here. Awesome. So we'll just want to make that smaller. You know, I should crop that sucker. All right. One of my favorite cropping tools, MS Paint. Great. While we're at it, we'll go ahead and crop the blue one. Hey, cat. Okay, great. So that's what we're replicating, or trying to replicate, over here in this trait tree. Okay, so my primary spec is the DPS. It still has the name. That's kind of cool. We'll go ahead and spec into red. And then just start jumping down the tree. Now, in this red tree, because we're on Treebeard, we've only had access to 46 points, as we can see in the screenshot. But we can see, based on the leveling thing, as people in the community have pointed out, as Lord Zach is pointing out into chat, there can be slight discrepancies, plus or minus a point or two, depending on how thoroughly you had gotten all your trait points. For instance, I had all of the ones available at level 65 except the promotion points, which would be available at level 65, except for we don't have epic battles. Let me drop that down a little bit. There we go. Yeah, so we don't have epic battles, so we don't have the 2 trait points that were available from promotion points, which makes me really curious. Did they fix that? I can't tell because I don't have them. Oh man. Okay, I gotta find that out because now I'm curious. All right. So as of Bulwar 1, promotion. Give me promotion points, rewards. Oh, okay. So it looks like they might have pulled the rewards out of the promotion point deeds as well. I suspect the deeds are still there. I don't know if they gave anything else. Have to duck on another server to find that out. So yeah, plus or minus a couple of D points depending on how thorough you were. So if you are looking at an alt who was underdone, you might end up having more trait points available to you than otherwise. And this, I feel like this is a very alt character friendly policy here. So if you've got 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 13 characters over here on Treebeard, they're all, unless you were very diligent about getting all of those class deeds done, they're all going to have more points than they did. So very good for those of us who have lots of alts. Neutral to maybe slightly minus if you only had the one character and you're at a level range where you're just 1 or 2 less than you had before. But I think for the most part, it's going to be really close. Especially for those of us who do not have promotion points. Those 2 were always taunting me. So, let's go ahead and get that done. So we have 5 there, we've got 1 there, we've got those. Actually, I do want to go ahead and grab this. And do I want that though? Oh, I feel like I'm underusing it. Oh, but the anthem duration has gone up. I feel like that's going to help. I feel like in group content, that's I really like having this Anthem of Composure. I'm going to pre-get it now and just assume that that's going to be the case. All right. I think I had trait points in most everything else red. Definitely in the Call of Rome. Let's get that. I did not used to do Enduring Morale, but they have changed it so it should scale a little bit better with your character stats. And they've also, at rank 4, you do get that area effect stun on Call of the Second Age, which I just think is delightful, especially since your Dissonant stance, Dissonant Piercing Cry, no longer has the stun. That's very sad. And I just don't feel like going into Melodic stance just for a single target stun. It's not for me. Okay. Did I skip? I did skip that. And Herald Strength, I didn't have enough for it. Okay, so now I've got 1 point more than I did before. There is the possibility of tossing a point into yellow, but I think the strike damage over there is less compelling than the morale stolen or the cacophonous echoes. Now, in group content, especially if we're doing like a hard single target like a boss, I feel like timeless echoes of battle is cool to do. Like reduce their resistances, go ahead and do damage. Sounds great. But I don't know that 20% more damage on that is as compelling to me as self-healing. So I'm going to go ahead and get the self-healing. We're going to go ahead and apply that. And let's come on over to blue. And you need to be blue now. Okay. So, very similar. We'll spend all that. Now, same thing with blue. I also... heals. I also spec'd into Anthem of Composure. But also Concussive Shout. And why did I do that? I think I wanted to mix and match that with the Resonant Piercing Cry. Scoring a critical hit with the Resonant Piercing Cry places an area around the target lasting 20 seconds, and the healing things are more effective there. So if you're going to throw out a Piercing Cry, for 2 trait points, it can have a 30% better chance of proccing that effect. That seems good. So let's go ahead and drill on down through here, this trait tree. And I thought it was interesting, while they were reworking these trait trees in the dramatic way they did recently, that they didn't do anything about pause for breath. And maybe this is because at high level play, power usage does come into effect, but I feel like at level 65, unless I've been hit by a plague or something, my power bar is not spent fast enough, unless I'm in a 10-minute battle or something, for me to care about the cost of abilities. I'm curious if anyone has an experience at like level 140 where they're like, oh my goodness, pause for breath is amazing, it saves my bacon because otherwise I run out of power all the time. I'm curious about that. But in the meantime, it's not a problem over here, unless, like I said, if you get hit by a plague or something, and that's why you keep Celebrant Selves around. Alright, get that improved Bolster Courage. Resonant Piercing Cry. We'll go ahead and get Hammerhand. What are you? Quick Melody. Yeah, Healing Time Inductions. Anthem of Compassion. Sounds good. Okay, so at this point, I'd have most of those same things. Let's go ahead and get a point in there. A point in, well, 2 points in there, and then we have 1 point remaining to spend somewhere. An extra 10% razor pay. Neat. Probably that. Let's see. What do we have here? I don't have a good internal sense of what Inspiring Finish really does for me and how cool it is, and therefore why I want another 25%. But it really comes down to using Coda of Resonance, and I'm really bad about using my Codas. So for me, for my playstyle, I think that's going to be more effective. All right, bam, done. Now, when we change stances, we're going to have an anthem come in for that. Oh, interesting. You can change stances really fast, but they still have that pretty long cooldown. Well, it feels long, 5 seconds. So if you need to zip out and back in real fast, better have 2 or 3 things queued up for what you want to do in between. Okay, so we are in a stance. Excellent. And okay, anything else? New mail, don't care. Okay, well, I care, but not right now. Okay, let's go ahead and get rid of that. Remove. Cool, okay. So, we've kind of reset after the patch. Gonna get rid of those screenshots, and let's come on in and take a look at this fix here. This first fix here is actually the answer to this error message. So, let's go ahead and found a bug. Take a snapshot of that. All right, and now we can go ahead and remove it. And coming into our source control, we can go ahead and say added nil check to account for no trained anthems. All right, 1 thing down. Very good. Thodox in chat says, really interested in going minstrel. Do you recommend it? And what is the best profession for minstrels? I do recommend minstrels, as I will say repeatedly to anyone who will listen, minstrels are bestrels. The thing that really draws me to minstrels is I really like having the flexibility to be a healing class or jump into a damaging class, a DPS class. And minstrels they are a healing class first and foremost, but for me, they have very good DPS. And not just in numbers, but in playstyle. So for me, I really like being at range, and minstrels are a decently ranged class. Not as powerful as some hunter specs, I think, but we do have a couple of... Oh, my abilities have changed. We do have a couple of skills that get up to 40 meters range, which can vie even with hunters for being able to just pick things off at a distance. The Cry of the Wizards, I think, also has that range. A lot of them are more like 30 meters range, so you can hit them, and then they come, and eventually you can be so range, and as you probably know, if you're asking that question, some classes have inductions that where it takes a little while to do something, like this little blue bar here, and in general, you cannot move while those inductions are happening. I know hunters have, I think it's blue line, where they can run around while those inductions are happening. But in general, if you are using a skill, either it's instantaneous or it has an induction. And none of the minstrel DPS abilities have an induction. It's just always instant, all done. The only quasi exception is Cry of the Wizards actually has a super long animation where you... And if you get stunned or feared before it actually goes off, then it doesn't actually go off. So you have like a second delay between when you hit the button and when it goes off, but there's no actual induction. You can keep running around doing stuff. And so for me, ranged class with no inductions on the damage side of things is what really draws me to minstrel, with the secondary thing of when my fellowship needs me to drop into heals, I have the ability to be in theory a good healer. Lord Zach points out that lightning rune keepers also have a lot of instant casting, and I noticed that when I was taking one of my alts through the haunted burrow and I needed to dispatch pesky hobbits, I was tending towards lightning skills because they were just like phew. So that is a point. So certainly, I don't think minstrels are the only way to get ranged zero induction skills going on. But for me, it's a very nice combination. Plus, as a minstrel, you get to scream an awful lot, and that's just very pleasing as you go out and go against the forces of darkness. So. I do recommend Minstrel. I think it's a lot of fun. It's not for everyone, but it's for many people. And then crafting. Excellent question about profession. And I guess I would actually say my recommendation and my personal life goal when it comes to Lord of the Rings Online is to be an armorer if it is your main character. Like if you're that's the character you're going to be mostly running around with on that server, then armorer is the way to go. You're going to be able to prospect the metals that you need. You're going to be picking up a bunch of hides. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, prospector doesn't have recipes. Right. You're going to be picking up a bunch of hides, and so you're only really missing a forester, which you can alt or have a kinship member or some friend process those hides into leathers for you. But the real key thing is Metalsmith and Tailor both have guilds that you can skill up with. And again, that just is easier to do if that's your main character and you're constantly getting these supplies. And also, if you have access to ingredient crates, you can use those universal ingredient packs combined with guild recipes to kind of kit yourself out in some very fancy gear, but also fancy gear for every character on your account. You can use your tailing and metalsmithing combined with guild recipes to give everyone the fancy blue cyan armor. Hey, you're level 65? Here, have a complete set of cyan armor. So when I do not have a metalsmith, tailor, prospector as my main on a server, it just feels so much harder. Like, you can do it with an alt, sure. For some reason, it just feels a lot harder than have that be my main. Then a jeweler / cook is a great thing to have if you're into having alts. You can fill in with a jeweler / cook for those consumables and for those jeweler items, and so on and so forth. But yeah, if I only had one, it would be an armorer. And if that was my main character, it would be armorer. And if I had more characters, then I would start filling in. If you have not seen it, let's see. The LOTRO Wiki has a nice little jigsaw image for professions. Where is it? Maybe it's in vocations. Where is it? Interdependence. There we go. So, I have to rediscover this every time I'm looking for them. So, with all the different vocations / professions in the game, it is possible to completely cover all of them with 4 characters, either 4 of your own if you have alts, or just 4 of you in a kinship, 4 friends playing together, all of that. So, Armorer Slackets over here on the left. And if I were filling in, my next one would probably be a tinker for the cooking and jewelering. My third one would be the historian for the scholaring and the farming, which the farming can feed the cook very nicely. And then my fourth one, just because I tend towards minstrels and woodworkers don't do a lot for minstrels, my fourth one would be a woodsman. Little Redhead in chat points out that they have teased the idea of breaking apart this vocation into something a little bit more flexible. Certainly, I found it to be constricting feeling compared to, many years ago, 15 years ago, when I first ducked into LOTRO. I had been playing World of Warcraft, which was more flexible of just, here's your production thing, here's your gathering thing, here's your hobby. And you got to kind of pick, mix and match as you wanted. And yeah, if you were working with metals, you probably wanted to be a prospector and get the metals. But coming here, where you had this package of vocations, it felt reasonable from an in-game perspective, but it did feel a little bit like, but I'm a cook and I don't know how to farm. I mean, that's fair. I can cook a few basic things and I can farm not at all, so I get it. Okay, anyway, so, don't know if anyone needed that, but why not? We'll drop a link to that into chat for Crafter Interdependence graphic. All right, so, excellent question. I don't know if that was helpful, Thodox. Oh, you have mentioned in chat. Thank you for a very filling answer. You're welcome. I have opinions. Sometimes they might even be correct, but I do have opinions. Okay. Yeah, if that was too much, if you're a new player to LOTRO and you would like more details on any of that, let me know. It sounded like maybe you were not new to LOTRO, just weren't sure about minstrels. Okay, so we have a minstrel buff plugin. If we let's go ahead and make that visible outside of combat. We've gone ahead and scaled up the UI. We're going to scale up a little bit more. And we'll go ahead and bring it on back. Awesome. Okay, so for anyone just tuning in, we have this minstrel buff plugin that has this idea of a priority anthem queue, which is all else being equal, which of your anthems should you use next if you obviously don't have a reason to do something else. It's just in the background lets you see that the anthem cooldown is coming, and then just have that idea of, oh, it's time. Okay, it's time, and not have to think too hard. And especially, it's going to really Eye of Sauron. Wait a second, that didn't used to come in neighborhoods. I feel like they have changed that. Interesting. Yeah, that's definitely different, and I'm going to end up killing myself on this dummy. That's fantastic. Um, Neat. Okay, so yes. Oh, we need to get some more anthems going. So a thing here is that if you always have your lesser anthems above your greater anthems, then for lesser anthem resonance and dissonance, you're going to prefer getting that personal effect rather than burning it on burning your anthem cooldown time on a greater anthem 1 or 2, which refreshes the combined effect but doesn't give you those personal benefits. All right, let's actually remember to use an anthem here. Awesome. And those would be the 3. We're missing number 4 here and 2 possible ones from red. So those are the 3 we have available to us. Agartha says, training dummies gained a powerful new ally. Yeah, Sauron's like, wait, we have what? This is almost as good as dragons. Those fools just throw themselves at them and they're invulnerable. Excellent. So, we can see here, we go ahead and use the one, and then we don't have anything that needs activation. And in 10 seconds, the Anthem 3 Composure can use a re-up. And that's when we should see that pop back up. Now, I am noticing that was maybe a second later than it needed to be. That could be worth fine-tuning things a little bit. Okay, so that's a quick little review of where we're at. I'm going to go ahead and step away from Sauron's powerful new ally. And we'll see about that. Oh, that is a downside for Thodox or anyone else. If you are playing a minstrel, then you do not have a ranged auto attack anymore. Your ranged weapon has been supplanted with your musical instrument. In my case, an exquisite cowbell. So that means I have auto attack turned on at this point, but it can do nothing about it. That being said, we have a fairly nice basic attack in the ballads, especially minor ballad. There's no problem, except that you can't just turn it on and walk away. You have to be engaging with that. If you're the kind of fidgety type person who likes clicking on things all the time, as I will do, then that's no problem, right? You're always clicking on things. It might as well be the attack button. But if you're a person who really doesn't like having to go and click to attack, like the minstrel will attack in melee automatically, but it's not a very good attack, I imagine, compared. So I'm heading for 44, 90, 50. Okay, I'm definitely hitting 2 digits. If I attack with my main effect here, it's more like, 400, so about 10 times the damage. So you can do melee auto attacks, but not in place of actually attacking. So that's a downside for minstrels, I would say. A little bit. Depending on your playstyle. Okay, so back to our to-do. So I had a note to go back and delete some excessive debug statements that were included in the September 13 commit. Well, that's easy enough to do. Let's go find that commit first of all. So September 13. What September 13 commit? That just, did I mean something else? Oh. Well, I'm going to say that was October 13, or October 18. We have the right timestamp for that. Oh, that's not right though. Okay, well, I have no idea what I was doing there. So we can honor the spirit of that note, which was to say, let's go find any turbine.shell.writeline output statements within minstrelbuff and make sure it was intentional. We may have already done this. So let's go ahead and make sure we're only looking in the right spot. Can I collapse all of these? Let's see. Aha! Alright, so minstrel buff. There we go. Okay, we can see all of these turbine.shell.write lines have been commented in buff window. And then there's also general functions. That's a maybe, but in this case we can see that's in the middle of a block comment. So we're also good there. And then our main line, okay. Yes. Well, we're in a function called write buffs to chat, which feels pretty debuggy, I would say. So the real question is, are we calling that function? We do not seem to be calling that function. Excellent. And then every other call is commented out using the line comment. So we're good there, actually. Oh, nope. Minstrel buff command Lua. These are probably fine. We're writing that, invalid operation. And good. Yep, those are all fine. And finally, our settings. Okay. The save file is corrupt. That's not good. Okay, good. So just a quick little. We must have picked up those debug statements as we went and said, okay, we're time to turn that off. So done as a non-issue. Cool. All right. Possible bug: hide UI when serious business is active seems to get into states where the UI is visible. Well, it shouldn't be. Well, that definitely seems like a bug. So when we are dealing with serious business, there are a couple places that just have a serious business force field. If you're in the Frostbuff Theater, for instance, I think. But also when you're in the Breland Festival Grounds. So if we come on over to Bree, we can just duck over to the festival grounds and force ourselves to be in serious business mode and be able to move back and forth and back and forth. I also like the festival garden in Doolan, but you have to go through a portal to get in and out of that effect. Whereas here, it just happens on landscape. And so I feel like it's a little bit easier to play around with it. Okay, so festival grounds. We want to go over just straight ahead from where you zone in. There is a stage that is also zoning in, and that's there's a serious business border around that. Right around this milestone. There we go. So we have a serious business effect. Now this is festival consumables serious business, but there is a more serious business that also disables emotes. So I can still do emotes here. Yay! But I can't do a festival consumable. We can see those skills are grayed out. But if I walk back out, they're available again. Fantastic. Okay, so what we want, so hide UI when serious business is active. Cool. We can see it is working to this point. Let's go ahead and try to replicate it with the note we left ourselves. Use major ballad in serious business and watch the UI become visible. Okay, so serious business. The UI is on, so that is a bug. Perhaps. Is it? Well, first of all, it's a bug because... Oh no, it may have a... That is wild. Yeah, okay, that's definitely wonky. So ideally... Oh, is Major Ballad not activating the combat timer? That is a question. Okay, so that's what I would expect to see. So, new question. Is Major Ballad activating the chat timer? Combat timer. Different word. Okay. So what we would expect to see here, yes. So if we duck into serious business and back out, everything is fine. Is this a drinking game, Lord Zach? I say the word ballad and you take a drink. Okay, so being in this serious business and having the major ballad pop the window open feels like we have run into a case where the timer bar thinks it should not be shown, and we think it should be shown. But for major ballads, that is so weird. It's okay. You can play drinking games without alcohol. The secondary effect is if you drink enough, then that just becomes uncomfortable. Your stomach only has so much volume. Okay, so I'm gonna close this crafter interdependent. This is weird, and dare I say wonky. If I were to disable this option, though, let's see, hide UI when serious business is active, then I think, there is no problem, first of all. We're going to go ahead and let those expire and then run back in and do it again. No. Oh, that's interesting. Wait, can I replicate that without serious business at all? Let's go ahead and do that. Let's go. What is going on here? Ballad healing bonus is not activating this timer. Fascinating. Let's go ahead and really activate the timer. Okay, so we could be looking at two conflated things here. One, we're near a serious business area, so we can't actually easily get into combat to force this issue. And so by using Major Ballad, we may be seeing two different issues. An issue with Major Ballad and an issue with serious business. So, if we go ahead and pay attention to serious business, Okay, so turning it on wasn't enough. I had to unload and reload. That's a separate issue. All sorts of fun edge cases. And part of this has probably come about from some of the refactorings we've been doing. Switching serious business on requires turning it off and on again to work. So we should see what's going on there. Okay. And then we should say not is Major Ballad. Major Ballad is not activating the combat timer. Period. I think. Major Ballad is not always activating the combat timer. Doesn't work. Then use cry of the chorus, then it does work. I think is the way to replicate this so far. Okay, so didn't work. We'll let that expire. And does work, but then we're saying the next one doesn't work? No, we're not saying that at all. Are we saying dipping into serious business and back out is the thing? No, we're not saying that either. Dipping into it while there's no timer active? Sometimes just replicating the bug is tricky. When Zach says, before was like, we're going to remove debug. And I'm like, I think we need more debug. I feel justified in that A, we didn't actually end up removing any debug, and B, none of it was in the in this particular subsection. Okay, we found a specific thing. So switching serious business on requires turning off and on again to work. We did. How are we telling about serious business? Let's find out. Serious business is serious business, and we have a check for serious business. Those are not great variable names. Let's assume is serious business is checking okay, so is serious business change? Okay, how do we know if it's a change? Okay, so if we're checking for serious business and if we care about serious business and we don't think serious business is currently on and this is serious business, then count it as serious business is true. Otherwise, we think it is not true. Okay. Those seem like reasonable assertions on the face of it. And if we're seeing something, we're going to set serious business to true, and then during effect removed, process effect removed, I'm not convinced that is the right logic. Let's go ahead and do a split here. We'll split right. So we have a function. And the function is serious business change. We don't have a documentation of what we think this is doing. But I hate what I've done here because hate's a strong word. What I did was wrong, and I don't like it. So in general, if you have a function asking a question then the answer is generally yes or no with no side effects. You're just asking question. And then you want to use your setters to actually update something. So this is a combination. If we're looking for serious business, then the name is not great. What is this? What are we doing? We are setting serious business present. And then what is buff window doing with this? Set to serious. So I think what we want to do is go ahead and rename this function because this function is just not doing what we thought it was doing. And the result is we are getting a true on serious business present, both if we're looking for it and we don't think it's already present. And I don't know how much we care about that because buff window is going to be checking for are we actually changing? It's not going to do unnecessary work, I think. And I wonder if that's a good idea also, but that's okay. So we have a function that is not good. And that might be part of this. So what we really want is I can see why it's called if, because we are in an if statement. Self is serious business change. I just don't think we need. We need to know whether we're looking for serious business because we're doing the process effects here, not in buff window. And that's fine. Ish. I'm not a fan of it but we are doing sort of a multiple dispatch of most things to buff window, but just that one over to melodic interlude window. So we need two things. We need a function that checks if this is serious business. Function. So most of this effect name. So is serious business, and what we're really looking for is if effect name equals self dot serious business effect. And in fact, since we would effectively then return true, else return false. So this is a classic case of don't write that, just return the result of this comparison. Return effect name equals serious business effect. Now, because it's a one-liner, there's a question of do we actually need that? I don't think it's a bad thing because you could potentially have more of this. That is to say, it's not serious business if we don't care about it. So we could still use this logic, I think. So if we're checking for serious business, I don't even think I care about the serious business present. Just if we are checking for it and it is, then return true. Else return false. Something's gone wonky here. Let's see. My indentation has gone weird. So again, we are just returning the result of that conditional. So again, this if-else statement is just not needed. So instead, we could break this out a little bit. Local is serious business. We could just assign that to a local variable like this. Or we could just say, no, that's fine. Return this. I think that's fine for this purpose. If this got much more complicated, I would be very interested in maybe breaking it out into one or more variables that then get returned, combined and returned. Thurlor says hello in chat. Hello. So we have a fixed version of this function. No longer is serious business change. But just is serious business. And again, we are hedging that with returns true if effect name is a serious business. And if we tracking serious business. Returns false otherwise. Okay, so that's the intent of this. Whereas this was busy mutating things. And so at that point, we can come back in, and if it is serious business, then we can go ahead and do that here. Self.is serious business present equals true. and then pass that on. Set serious business. This feels a little janky to me just because, again, we have, if this is true, then do stuff with true. Presumably, if this was false, do stuff with false. But I think it's fine for what we're doing. Then we're going to come on in here, and then same thing. In fact, let's go ahead and hoist that. Okay. So at that point, we can go ahead and kill this function. A wizard is always serious business. And now I miss in blue stance my Cry of the Wizard skill. I think it is excellent. And then when I'm healing, I'm like, but I want to blow up. Okay, so we had this if, or this is function that was busy mutating state. It's gone. Read everything about that. Now we have an is function that is not mutating state. It is just doing a query, checking some stuff, and returning a yes/no answer that we can then use to mutate some state. Okay, I don't know if that'll actually fix our problem, but it might. So let's start there. And so what were we seeing? We were seeing if we went ahead and... Where's my thing? Okay, well that's definitely not fixed then. All right, let's go ahead and hide that part. Okay, that's fine. Interesting. Okay, so what we want to do is add some debug statements, as Lord Zach mentioned. Let's get a sense of when these functions are getting called with. Wait a second. Yes. Okay. With the new way that this function is behaving, we are checking to see if the effect name is serious business, and so that not there was probably not good. Let's go ahead and bring this back. Okay. Yes. All right. If we go ahead and stop doing that. Okay. Now the only complication is if you say hide UI when serious business is active. And if we make that change while it's happening, okay, that came visible. Interesting. Okay, was it the other problem? Yeah, so if you're in serious business and you turn on the setting, it does not immediately take effect. Okay. So, that's the new problem, but so let's refine this. Turning serious business tracking on while in serious business doesn't immediately hide the window. Cool. Okay. So that gives us a little bit more specific stuff. Okay, so we're still digging into this. So what's going on here? Let's do that. Cool. Kinmate has a bunch more trait points, as we mentioned. Let's go ahead and get some of those right line statements in there so we can track what's going on. So turbine dot shell dot write. Oh. Yes. Okay. So the extra work that we're doing in Is Serious Business is, I think, coming back to haunt us. Because if the setting's not on, we're not actually tracking whether or not we're in serious business. We're just like, oh, we don't care. So we have two things. The main window, which wants to know whether or not it's serious business, and the buff window, which is actually going to do something with it. And so I think in this function, we need to stop caring about the check for serious business. Just, is the effect name serious business effect? So we're going to get rid of that. And at that point, the function's so trivial, it's a question of why is it even there, but it does allow us to do things like logging. It's fine. We're going to leave it right there. Okay. Is serious business? Yes, there we go. So, turbine.shell, .write line, and alright, so that effect name, this name is true, exclamation point. And we're going to just bring that down here. Is false. Okay, unload, reload, let's get back in there. So we can see serious business is true. We can see it's false, true, false. It's like standing on the border between two countries. You just hop back and forth. True, false, true, false. Nice. Okay, so that's all fine. If we turn off the ability, we're still getting that called. Yes, there we go. We're still getting that called. If we turn it off while we're in there, we got our window back. If we turn it off while we're out here, okay, so that was sufficient, it looks like. Looks like we are paying attention to that state when the setting changes, and now we're actually paying attention to the state correctly. So I feel pretty good about that. And we're going to preemptively get rid of these debug statements and hope that I don't regret that in a minute. Okay, but that seems to address this issue, that turning serious business tracking on, well, in serious business doesn't immediately hide the window. It does now. Why may I say that? Let's double check. It does now. Excellent. I felt like I did that. Okay. So let's go ahead and do a commit of that before we go too far. All right, so do a little refresh. In our main, we can see a couple of changes here. So, checking on, fixed, and issues with serious business not tracking correctly. All right, we'll just call it that. Okay, we have both of these changes, which is really just, streamlining the name of it and getting rid of that not. And now we have a function that instead of mutating is just checking, is it serious business? Perfect. Commit, and we're good. So, back to the problem that we were here for before we found that other problem. Okay. Real question is, how much of that, besides fixing the problem we identified, was also impacting the other problem? Which is to say, we should retest what we had seen and see how much of it is still a problem. Okay. I mean, straight up right there, we have a major ballad that did not start the timer. Awesome. Great to be able to reproduce it. Let's do it a second time. They disappear. Let's do it one more time. Still a problem. And then the theory is that improved cry of the chorus is going to get that combat timer going. And it does. So that has refreshed the state in some way And so we can kind of compare what are these two things doing, major ballad or cry of the chorus, and maybe find enough of a difference. Okay, major ballad's back to working. Looks like we have a cat on the chair. Is that visible?
Yeah, I can see her on your screen.
Nice. All right, well, that is Kato. She's around 8 years old and is steadfastly looking in a different direction. It's probably a good sign. I hear that if cats are willing to sit near you and not pay any attention to you, or not seem like they're paying attention to you, then it's like, oh, they trust you enough to not like attack them. And so they can just chill out and keep an eye on a different direction. Like, I've got this direction, she's got that direction. We've got more room coverage that way. So, I'm no cat whisperer, but, it sounds good. All right, so back to... Let's multi-line that a second. Okay, so we're still seeing some major ballad issue. And we are saying that the cry of the chorus seems to get it out of that state. So, let's take a look at that. Where does that exist? Cry of the chorus activated. Now we do have that. Right. There is a lot of logic that goes into trying to make that timer show up properly. All right, so what we want is we need to figure out if major ballad activated is happening. And that's the major ballad call. Makes sense. So let's go ahead and set up a couple of turbine.shell.writelines. Now, in a normal plugin that you're writing at home, you would almost certainly have some sort of debug function, right? Or you might even have an info function that maybe they spit out in different colors. And so you would not be writing turbine.shell.writeline every single time. It's a lot of stuff to type. And by wrapping them up in these fancy dancy functions, you can have maybe color injected, so all of your errors are red and all of your infos are yellow or something. Is a common thing to see in plugins. I'm choosing not to do that, partially just to get in the habit of remembering where on earth the writeline function is, but partially, it's all that. It's just like these are the fundamental building blocks. So in your own work, if you are ever doing a plugin, make a debug function, make an info function, maybe a warning function if you want, and spruce them up with colors. Warning seems to be something. Oh, interesting. It is not. What do you think debug is? Funny. Okay, we already have a debug mess. Debug and info functions, fantastic. So those are what I should be using. But we can see what they've done is they're wrapping around a turbine.shell.writeline, and they're just injecting a color. This is predominantly red, and this is predominantly green. Cool. But I keep typing turbine.shell.writeline so that everyone knows just exactly what I'm doing. I'm not doing anything special under the covers for this. And it does help me remember where this is. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing for the major ballad reset time change. I'm wondering if that's the problem. With all the effect name changes that have gone on, maybe this needed to be changed. So, we can see cry skill reset time changed. That really makes me wonder, like, there's more than one cry skill. Is valid cry skill? Great. What's that function say? Valid cry skill names? Great. Cry of the chorus, improved cry of the chorus, and Song of Unity on a war steed. Okay, so that is just an imprecisely named function. Because of course we do have things that are either calls or cries. In fact, this is both a cry and a call. But I'm guessing it's not going to, yeah, not going to matter there. Okay, so we have the is valid cry, and we saw cry skill reset time changed. Oh, that's interesting. We got another cry skill. Did I forget to save? Well, let's reload just in case. Okay, cry skill reset time changed. What is going on here? Okay, those should definitely be different functions. Those are not different functions, and that worries me. Okay, so we were seeing this replicate with some serious business. Still a cry skill. That's not great. Any arcs. So, Thriller asked any arcs. Yeah, I was just about to sort of dig back up. So we get cry skill reset time changed. When this, we are assigning that as we're dispatching to a member function for cry skill reset time change callback, which is itself getting added to reset time changed for this skill. So what we want to do is say, what on earth skill is this? And is that a string? Skill list get item. That is a skill. Great. Well, just in case we forget what that is, let's go on over to the documentation. And we're going to go ahead and say turbine.gameplay. Come on down to skill and say, what do we have? We can get a skill info. Great. Let's go ahead and add a note here. Okay, so turbine.shell.write line adding callback to skill, and we're going to go ahead and do skill get skill info, and we're going to go ahead and get the name from that, and just spit that on out and see what's up. Adding callback to skill improved the chorus. Okay. Okay, on game. Let's get all of this. But we'll go ahead and say what specific one we are checking. You know, when I see this list right here, which is just going through and saying, well, is it this? Well, is it this? Is it this? What I really would like is a function that you call to say, what is it? And it returns the thing that it is, instead of just having to do these comparisons over and over. But that's not really what we're doing right now. Okay, so we go ahead and load is valid coda skill. Cool. Adding callback to skill coda of melody is valid cry skill. Well, I gotta ask, where's my major ballad skill? And for that, we're gonna go ahead and go to our major ballad skill names, and that's the problem. In the recent release, a major ballad turned into major ballad resonance. Now, there's still the question of how we're activating the callback, which we should not be. But let's go ahead and fix this major ballad skill names. And that's going to be a thing to do in multiple languages. So get major ballad skill name in German and French is going on to, oh, wrong place. Okay, so get updated major ballad skill name in German and French. Oh, but it's going to be different. updated it. That's interesting. Major Ballad of Resonance. So I actually don't care about it being any of the others because... Do I not care about the others? I'm not sure. Let's come on in though and fix it here. Major Ballad Resonance. And then we'll go ahead and unload and reload and see, first of all, does it find it? It does. It is a valid major ballad skill, adding callback to skill major ballad resonance. Awesome. If we do that, do we get the right callback? We do. We get a major ballad reset time changed. Thurlor asks, why not just major ballad dot star? So, excellent question, Thurlor. Minstrels are wacky, and the reason this code exists is that white bar at the bottom of the minstrel buff window is tracking your out of combat time with some super heavy asterisks on out of combat. So when you look at any of your ballads as a minstrel, you're going to see this text expires if out of combat for 9 seconds. And that is a big bold lie because I've been out of combat for way more than 9 seconds, and yet if I use it, it doesn't immediately expire, right? So there's more going on there. And so Major Ballad and Cry of the Chorus both start a timer. If you're not already in combat, they both have a different internal timer that is going off, that is kind of adjacent to combat. I think in my description I called it like a secondary combat timer. And so if you're in combat, and it's great. But if you have a secondary combat timer going, you need to get into combat and stay in combat for like 5 seconds, or it doesn't convert over. You still expire. I'm probably not explaining it very well. So Major Ballad, when used when you are not in combat, functions differently. And by definition, Major Ballad of Resonance, and by definition, Minor Ballad, Major Ballad, and Perfect Ballad in the offensive ability cannot be used if you're not in combat, right? This doesn't work. But Major Ballad is special. Major Ballad can be used, and so it, in order for it to not just expire right away, has its own separate 9-second timer that can convert over into a combat timer if you get in and stay long enough, or if you're in combat right when that timer expires. It's great. And figuring that out required me to obliterate the wolves and boars of Dunland for many hours as I tweaked and poked and coded. And it could still have some inaccuracies to it, but it does seem to represent the game state pretty well, plus or minus a little lag. So, just as an example, I know there's some orcs just northeast of here. Let's go say hi. Where's that gazebo? Had to be inside and outside all at the same time. All right, there's the dwarf. There's the gazebo. Great. Okay, so so if you have no timer going for Cry of the Chorus or for your Major Ballad, or because you have left combat, then you're just in this default state. And so when you step into combat, you have a full bar. Any ballads you have will just last for 9 seconds after you leave this combat. Cool. I think I don't want to waste these orcs. Okay. So, now the timer starts. If I get back into combat, though, it has to last long enough, or I have to be in combat when that timer expires, and then we get a conversion. Okay. Yep, go away. Thank you. So if I get back into combat and it doesn't last long enough, then even though I was in combat, doesn't matter, they still go away. because that was again, this is my language, not SSG's, but that secondary combat timer didn't have enough time to convert over into a primary combat. And it's super great, and it's sort of the number one reason why, especially if you're over leveled, why your ballads will expire when I was just in combat. Why'd they expire? It's because you were in a secondary combat and it didn't last long enough. So if you're one-shotting these things, you just need to make sure you one-shot them right as the timer would expire, and then it's fine. You've sort of satisfied that need. Anyway, all that being said, the Major Ballad Resonance is special. It's great. Really, the number one reason why I started working with Minstrel Buff, like, it was already great, but I was struggling to understand why my ballads were just suddenly going poof. It really felt like it didn't have any sense behind it, and now it feels like there is a little bit of sense behind it. Sorry, like, what you doing? That's fine. There's a craft project in a plastic bag over on the table, and one of the cats is interacting with it. It's great. Fortunately, it's not my craft project. Okay, I'm just going to head on back to our serious business field, force field. Okay, so yes, great question though, Thorlor. This should be better documented. Right now it's all in my head, and it does need to be better expressed in code, and the code should be refactored in some way. So, yes, we are taking care of serious business here. Okay, so, serious business is working, and now... Actually, I think that's probably the thing, right? Like, we were, for some reason, activating it as if it was the cry of the chorus when it wasn't, and I'm still a little weirded out that, A, that was happening, but B, that cry of the chorus wasn't, it thought it was cry of the chorus, but it still wasn't causing the timer to show up. That was weird. But it seems to be working now. I'm going to duck in and out a little bit and try and replicate the problem. Okay, excellent. Okay. Awesome. I mean, that was definitely a big bug to find, and I believe that was directly related to the update, 33.4 changes, where Minstrel 3.0 came down. I think they went ahead and renamed that. Concerned, I'm curious if that was renamed in French and German as well. Although, we saw in the patch notes today, if you had a chance to glance at them, they're, I believe, linked in the launcher. Click here for the release notes. Excellent. Thank you. So, in the release notes, we did see, if you scroll on down to the localization section, a bunch of German changes and 2 French changes. If we take a look at that, German, all Minstrel Anthem effects for German now display properly in German. Hooray! I'm curious if that means they have fixed the M dashes to be N dashes, or if they mean they've actually localized the text. So I need to go pop on there and check, because that we are doing string matching to find effect names at the moment. Now, you got down to 45 morale. For context, I believe Little Redhead is running through the Swan Fleet areas of the Before the Shadow. I think that she mentioned she was going to do that. Currently level 5, but what landscape difficulty are you?
I can't find the guy yet.
Oh, you can't find them. Okay. I was curious if they would remember to put a landscape difficulty person in Swan Fleet. I don't know. Worst case, you get recruited to Kin and go to kinship housing, and that's fine. But all right. So yeah, I'm excited to see some localization notes happening here. I'm glad that they're tweaking some stuff in German and French. But right now, and I was pausing for thought, because I feel like effects, if I were to come into effect, there is, I don't know that the ID is probably just this server session, but the icon for each anthem effect or ballad effect could be distinct. We could try to match based off of icon IDs instead of by name. And then it wouldn't matter what language you were in. But can you do the same thing for skills? Active skills. You can get skill info. Okay. And there's also that, skill info, yeah. Skill info. You can also get the icon image ID there. I wonder if that would be more fragile or less fragile than the name method. Because obviously the name method just bit us here. You need to be able to check the effect names and the skill names and the effect names for everything you care about. And that just feels like that would change. Well, it shouldn't ever change. But if it does change, it feels like it would change more often than the icon ID. Huh. Oh, little redhead here is there's a window in a place called Lon Garon. I'm going to just assume that is named in honor of plugin developer Garen. Who wrote a very excellent series of posts over on the forums called Writing LOTRO Lua Plugins for Noobs. So, Garen, you have a city named after you, apparently. Good job. Way to be an awesome member of the community. Okay. I'm going to say that is a bigger issue, but we're going to go ahead and put that down here. You consider using skill and effect image IDs instead of names to identify them. Oh, you know where that would fall down? I think we're done with serious business. So I'm going to return to personal housing so we can get back into it with the Sauron's dummy. The personal effects, I think, use the same icon. But the personal effects last for the same amount of time as the associated anthems. So it doesn't matter. But we have been interested in tracking the personal effects, and in English, at least, there is a different name for the personal effect and the fellowship effect. And hopefully in the other languages eventually as well. I want to say in German they were different by just what type of dash they used, but in French they were identical. I'd have to double check. Okay, so if we go ahead and activate this, yeah, I would guess that's the same internal icon, but I'd be interested to find out because they could have just had the same icon twice to be used for different effects. I don't think they would do that. I think they would just point both effect at the same icon until they needed them to be different. But again, they have the same duration, plus or minus, a fraction of a second. Radio. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna add this. This would conflate the personal and fellowship effects, but they always have approximately the same duration. So that's a strong maybe for me. Obviously, not today. Okay, so hide possible bug. Okay, that's enough dummy. Enraged power. Okay, I'm super curious if the if that effect comes into housing. It does. Okay, I'm super curious if that comes into instances now. Because I assumed the whole reason it wasn't applying in housing was because housing it's an instance, and in instances that support more than 2 people, it was off. I'm going to get very distracted here. There's so much to find out. This is. I have to imagine the delta of code changes between this release and the last release. Like so much could have changed, and I was not expecting that particular one. So let's come on into, oh, I don't know, what's something? Karn Dune, maybe. Karn Dune. Let's see. This is definitely a 6-person instance. Do I have the deadly effect? I shouldn't, but I wouldn't have expected to have it in housing either. I don't have it here. Okay. Okay. A 3-person instance. Near halls. Okay. No. Okay. But I would expect it to be in a 2-person one, so whoa.
The light has failed, however, and its walls seek to learn why their mirrors do not reflect it as they
Yes.
did.
Okay. So it's there in 2-person. It's. Let me out.
By destroying the sword, can you stop the wood troll's blight from spreading and end the forest's misery?
No, you're on your own. Good luck with stopping the blight. Okay, that's interesting. I wonder if that was intentional. Question. Is landscape difficulty in neighborhoods intentional? Working as intended. And it's totally fine if that is intentional. It's just blowing my mind a little bit. Personal house. Thank you. Okay. Back to the training dummy. But more importantly, back to our notes. So I think we're really good on that serious business activity. We saw it working very nicely. Also, Major Ballad is not always activated in the combat timer. Okay, it is now. And we just need to get those updated Major Ballad resonance names over in the German and the French. Okay, that was one of the things that was irking me because it shouldn't be a problem. And we were seeing so many variations of it going wrong. And I think it was the 2 underlying issues that are now solved, fingers crossed. Oh, goodness. Oh, so as a reminder, the Legendary Item Reward Track Part 3 expires in 18 and a half hours. If you have not claimed all of your boxes by the time that timer expires, I believe they just vaporize. It'd be nice if they just eventually start mailing them to you, but for whatever reason, that's not there yet. So yes, do remember to get those, especially all of your one-on-one boxes that have piled up, if you have any of those. I did that earlier, and so my inventory is mostly coffers of legendary items. Neat. Yes, what was I actually going for, though? Let's go ahead and pull up our source control, and then we can say we fixed issues with serious business. And that was, we have some right lines that we forgot to get rid of. We'll come back to that. Oh, that was the issue with serious business not talking. Fixed issue with Major Ballad. Resonance not tracking. In the specific. Okay, that is this. That's our to-do file changes. These right lines, I think we're going to get rid of those in just a minute. So we've got our snapshot, our commit, and we're going to go ahead and just remove those right lines, and we're back to a clean working directory. Awesome. Okay. getting the updated Major Ballad residence skill name, that's going to require switching clients and just outputting effect names to chat. I think I'll do that off stream, unless we end up with a lot of extra time and all of these done. So let me move that on down in the priority list. Okay, Minstrel 3.0. Yes, thank you. Remember to do +2 for the how much time is left calculation. What this is when you are in combat. Let's go ahead and get some of that going. So, the choice of whether or not to show an anthem or some other anthem is based on the idea of if you have the cooldown of the anthem, say 25 seconds or less available between now and then that matters, right? That changes your choice. Specifically, let's go ahead and get lesser and greater 1 up. And now we would do lesser 3, and that choice is true until we only have 25 seconds left on Anthem 1 Resonance Compassion. That one's higher in priority, so if that would expire while we're waiting for the cooldown after we activate, I want to call that serious business now. It's stuck in my head. After we activate Lesser Anthem 3, if there wouldn't be enough time for the Anthem cooldown to cycle before we get back to Anthem 1, then that's a no-go. We have to go back to Anthem 1. And so the problem is we don't add any buffer time for the animation. So if I go ahead and tear this off, if I go ahead and activate this at basically 25, then by the time this thing starts cooling down, we may not have enough time. Yeah, so the cooldown remaining is 9 seconds of the effect. That's what I was looking for. Yeah. So do we actually have enough time to get back into here? We did, just barely. But I've definitely gotten into places where I waited even just a fraction of a second longer, or maybe a whole second longer, used it, and then there wasn't enough time to get back to it. So we want some buffer time in there. 1 or 2 seconds is enough. 1 second might be enough. 2 seconds is definitely generous. So we want to make it variable so we can come in and tweak it. And so we're going to make a class variable here. So self anthem cooldown buffer seconds, or something like that. I'll have to think about that name. Let's put it up next to the cooldown. How much extra time to allot to anthem cooldown for animations. So that's one of those 1001. So around a second. So if we put it at 1 second, that's probably fine. If we put it at 2 seconds, we're definitely going to err on the side of comfort there. That's the kind of thing where maybe we could stick that into an option menu eventually if we really cared. But I think 2 seconds is a good default. And so any place where we're using anthem cooldown seconds, I should say self.anthem cooldown seconds, and there's 8 of them, well 7 of them listed here. Any place where we're using that, we probably want to use that plus the buffer. And that might benefit from a helper function. I'm going to write it right here so I have access to these variables and then move it to where it's going to go. So function buff window, get anthem cooldown seconds. Now I could be really explicit in the naming and say get anthem cooldown plus buffer seconds. Maybe that makes sense. I'll think about that. That might be tying the implementation a little bit too strongly. Like we know internally we're gonna do buffers for now. Let's start without the too explicit naming and just say this is how to get it, and then local cooldown plus buffer equals self dot We can go ahead and bring in these. Aw. Q in chat says, seeing how fast you can do this makes me feel so bad about my own coding. I hope you will not feel bad, or not feel too bad. I have been coding in some form or another since, well, over 20 years. We'll call it roughly that. And so I haven't been coding with Lua that long, but the concepts of what I'm trying to express are hopefully coming a little bit smoother because of all the experience with different ways of trying to write things. And I've been working specifically with this Minstrel plugin quite a lot over the last year or two. But I would encourage you not to worry about comparing yourself to others, especially not to me. The whole point is, are you able to, write something and see something on the screen, and that's pretty cool. I wrote some truly atrocious code the other day for the Dungeons of Dol Guldur. Let me go ahead and finish this function, and I might actually pull it up just for the comedy of it. Alright, so we want to go ahead and bring that down. Oh, whatever. We'll just put it at the end. Where did I put that? That was in my downloads, right. So let's go ahead to our Documents Lord of the Rings Online plugins folder. And we can go ahead and Dungeons of Dol Guldur. Move here. So the idea was, if you've never done the Dungeons of Dol Guldur, you have 3 wings, and in those wings there are trolls set on a specific patrol pattern. You can't interact with them, you can't attack them, all you can do is be caught by them or avoid them. And so what I wanted to do was make a plugin that just, hey, showed me where they are. Like if I tell you where they are, animate its walking path. And I'm not much of an animator, but that's weird. Where did I put it? Oh, haha. Put it in the wrong place. Great. Okay. Dungeons of Dol Guldur. There we go. So, that was the idea, is you pops up this map, which is unfortunately, I guess you can see it. And then after the 5 seconds the troll stands in that corner, it just shows it moving along, and it's fine, right? But this was just a proof of concept. So the window does not move. I cannot tell it where I see the troll. I cannot reset it. All I can do is unload and reload it, and it only has the west wing. But the whole point was just be like, can I animate the head of a troll moving along this course here at approximately the same time as I see it in the dungeon? And it was a very satisfying couple of hours of just poking around and, can I animate the thing? Because that is not my wheelhouse at all. But, I got something moving on the screen, and I called it a day, right? It's like, hooray, and it's all good. And I think it'll be a solid start to an actual plugin that makes use of that. But as it is, it's not usable, but it's a proof of concept. Q in chat says, I'm on my first 6 months as a software dev, so I aspire to reach your level one day. It's I got to learn a lot about a lot of different topics during my first couple of years of just working for various companies. Let's go ahead and unload this troll. Oh yeah, and this will just keep circling it over and over forever. So it was fun to write. What I really want to do is mash this into the roving threat UI. Just take that and run with it, and just have, instead of roving threat maps, I don't want to have west, north, and east, and just add this animation of the trolls on top of what's already there, because it's nice to be able to share, where do you see elves, where do you see nightshade, all of that stuff. So if you have not done Dungeons of Dol Guldur, I think it's a very interesting dungeon. The mechanic, it's 90% mechanics of stealth around, avoid the trolls, map out where the elves are, get the elves all out, repeat, but each wing is harder with more trolls and more cells to check. And if the trolls catch you, they just throw you out and they reset everything. And on tier 2, you only get 2 chances. It's great. If you like dungeons with alternate mechanics, it's definitely one of those. I think I like the Drygok alternate mechanics better. I find them more engaging, but I love that they just went out there and like, you know what? You get to kill nothing for 45 minutes. You have to find the elves, and if you get into combat with anything, you lose. Good day, sir. It's fantastic. For certain definitions of fantastic. Okay. So we have a function, get anthem cooldown seconds, and this is probably what we want to use anytime we had the self anthem cooldown seconds. Well, Q in chat, I would say just keep writing things, writing code. Depending on how much you enjoy doing it not only at a job, but maybe have some personal projects at home. I obviously have plugins at home that I'm working on. This is not what I do for my day job, and not even the same language. I do mostly C# in my day job, but I get to come here and think about things that are not work, but still let me play around with making things. So if your hobby can intersect with your learning path, even better. Okay, so we have a set anthem cooldown seconds and reset time. This is actually talking about the anthem cooldown seconds. This is coming in. Update our internal state of anthem cooldown seconds. Internal state of how long anthems take to cool down based on an actual anthem. If our state changes, recalculate the anthem priority. Cool. So in this case, we actually need to be talking about the anthem cooldown seconds. This is how that value changes. So we do not want to just blindly use that new helper function there. So where else? Okay, so here's where we're talking about that shortest remaining time, and I think here's where we do want to use get anthem cooldown seconds. Make sure that's called a self with a colon notation, of course. All right, so not enough time for other anthem. We're looking for that remaining time less than. This is also where we want to have that buffer, because we want to make sure we have that 25 seconds plus a little extra. So yeah, self get anthem cooldown seconds. Excellent. And then we're rechecking. This is again where we care about what that seconds is. We're calling this several times here. I think at this point it might make sense to name that. So local anthem cooldown plus buffer equals this. And we'll go ahead and throw a seconds on there. I think that's a reasonable thing to do, because in here we do care that it's the buffer is being involved. So if the remaining time is less than anthem cooldown plus buffer seconds, we can use that more fluent naming style of variables, so it just kind of reads like a sentence. All right. We have shortest remaining time is less than that thing, anthem cooldown plus buffer seconds. Same thing here. Okay, where else do we have? We have the helper function. We have the just that. We have this new cooldown seconds. What is this? Update trained anthems. Okay, this too. We're talking about the underlying actual value of anthem timeout, not anything plus a buffer. So we're good here. Okay, then I think we're good. Let's go ahead and load the wrong plugin. Let's go ahead and bring back that minstrel buff. And we can just get into a little bit of combat with Sauron's favorite minion. Okay, So this really comes into play once we have both of our lesser and greater anthems. So I'm just going to go ahead and get those going here. All right. So we've got our greater. So at this point, what we want to see, what we'd like to see, is instead of the priority anthem switching over at about 25 seconds left on the Anthem 1 Resonance and Compassion effect, we want it to see it switching over more like 27, maybe 26, depending on if I have a rounding error in there. And so we can see the cooldown of the effect here. Let's close that. So ideally, around 20, when that clock ticks to 26 or 27, we're going to see the switch. Okay, 26, excellent. And we'll go ahead and activate Lesser Anthem 3 Composure this time, after our 25-second cooldown, and then kind of get a sense of, is it working in that case as well? Okay, there we go. Now at this point, we don't have any anthems that need to be re-upped. You could, of course, do it manually, but we still have the 25-second cooldown. So I think at that point, we're probably going to be bumping into this one's expiration. Now, if you have your traceries for anthem duration, and you have your yellow, well, I want to say yellow line, but if you have your yellow traits for anthem, for extended anthem duration and the anthem cooldown, then you have way more trait points than I do. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and activate that. This one comes along in just about 5 more seconds. 6. Yes, excellent. I think that's very good. If we missed anything, I think it's going to be very subtle. And it's only going to be a 2-second difference. So let's go ahead and kill that to-do item. And no, what on earth? My goodness, my health was a little lower than I wanted it to be there. That would be embarrassing to just die to a training dummy while coding, thanks to Sauron. Okay, so we want to come on in here, and we're going to go ahead and doesn't it sound like rain? Neat. We're going to go ahead and just copy that to-do item. Okay, so in here, we've got the extra time. Yep, we got a little function documentation there. We have excellent. We're using the right variables there. I like to just review what changes I made, just in case I didn't mean to make them. We're going to go ahead and take that. Yep. Cool. And then at the end of the, we went ahead and added a new function. Did we add a new line after that? We did. Great. Personal preference, I like trailing new line at the end of the file. Makes file diffs a little more comprehensible for me. Okay, so we'll go ahead and take that. And at that point, oh, my Dungeons and Adult Coulter is still there. Whoops. Let's go ahead and move that back out. What has it open? There we go. Can't move the files. Okay, so we have our to-do changes. We have the changes for the +2. And again, that's a +2 for right now. We can change this variable. We could even tie that up into an option screen setting if people want to be able to change it themselves. But for now, it's isolated into a single spot. Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and minimize that. And come on in to our to-do file. What else do we have? And again, this is specifically blocking a release. Update the background to include space. That's a good idea. I don't know if it's going to be engaging to do it on stream. Let me bump it down in priority. Switching themes mid-combat seems to cause a UI glitch until the plugin is reloaded. Maybe imitate what we do when the plugin first reloads. Okay, so let's redo the issue so we can kind of make sure that we understand what's going on. I feel like this dummy has it in for me. Okay, so again, this is a thing that you can normally do in the plugin where you can change themes around. So what we want to do is verify that changing mid-combat does what we expect to do. Specifically, what I think, if I remember, is an issue where when you change themes, it kind of throws away anything it knows about what ballads or anthems you have, but not universally, not very well. So if we change to fixed, we can see everything kind of disappears. If we change back to standard, it's all gone. And if I bring out another ballad, it doesn't show up because it internally knows there's 3 of them. Okay, we're definitely able to replicate this issue. Let's go ahead and bring out another anthem. And not great, right? Definitely not great. So what we're looking for is this effect. When we first load the plugin, everything is just there. And so how do we do that? Let's see, do we have a start function here? We have a buff window start. We have a refresh effect display. So this refresh effect display is the magic, which is basically well, it's this combination. Maybe. Buff window start redraws all the things. Refresh effect display gets ballads and anthems back on there. Let's find where we're handling the theme change then. We're going to start in our options window and theme list box. We have a selection index changed, and we're going to go to theme changed. And we go into set theme index. Excellent. Into the settings. Yeah. So set theme index. Awesome. So this was a thing we did last time to adjust the scaling as we're bipping around. It's working great. But we have the theme index value, save, and then theme changed. All right. So tell me more about this theme changed function. Oh, if self.theme changed. Okay. So we need to see where is theme changed being assigned. Okay. Okay. Buff window. Buff window is the only place, and that's where we call restart. Restart calls stop, and it calls start. Awesome, but it's not calling that extra function that we know works really nicely. In fact, you might say maybe we should call that function at the end of start. Let's see. What does stop do? Sets it to null. Okay. So let's start by coming on into. Oh, refresh effect display is in MB main. Okay, so we want to call this refresh effect display. Right now it's housed in main. Not my ideal, but it is there. So we want to effectively call that, which is actually going to be the refresh effect display of the global MB main variable. So MB main refresh effect display. And will IntelliSense confirm that that's maybe a function we can call? We'll try it anyway. Okay, so first of all, when we change themes, that's working out pretty well. And if we come on in here, let's get into combat and get some of these effects up. Yes-ish. Okay, so we're actually seeing some of that same thing where these ballads are not. Oh, and the count. Oh, yes. So minstrel buff does a thing which does not jive with my personal development style, which is to say, I'm used to the idea of a constructor where you can construct a thing. And that's where, when you are done with a constructor, you're done with the thing. And minstrel buff separates out the construction of a thing with the initialization of the thing. They don't have an init function, they have a start function, same thing. Now, given how much each of these components kind of looks at another component, the buff when it looks at main when it looks at buff, and all of that, this is a pretty straightforward way to break kind of a circular dependency where in order to construct main, you need a buff, and when you need to construct buff, you need a main, and then you just can't do it. So you construct each, and then you tell this one to start, and it can look at the other, and then you tell this one to start, and it can look at the other. So in that sense, what we have here is a systemic design issue where we don't have a good separation of concerns. These things are poking at each other. It's not great. It solves the problem. But what it means is when we hit start, all of these state variables should probably not be in there. These should probably all be initialized in start. And I'm so used to throwing them into the constructor that I think I've been digging myself into a bit of a hole here. So setting a callback function once, that's great. Another callback, that's great. But all of these things to say this is the default settings, I think need to go into start. So let's find that start function. And there we go. Initialize class variables to a good default. Okay. I mean, that could be it. Let's just let's give it a try. So we can still switch themes. Awesome. Let's come on in and see if basic mechanisms work. Okay, we can get a ballad, we can get a second ballad, we can get an anthem. Let's change theme. Yes. Now, a thing that I'm seeing is that when I change themes, my anthems are going up to 0, 0. And not to say that that's wrong, but it is. And I think the problem is when we set the window to nil, all of its components just sort of go away, but not necessarily in a nice regular order. So let's instead of doing too much, why not, instead of saying self.window equals null, just say if self.window is not nil, then, in fact, we could even throw that assignment in there, why not? Then self.window set visible false. Let's just see what we can do about that. Okay. Cool. Let's go ahead and switch. Yeah, there we go. So we by unparenting, well, by setting that top level control to nil, I expect what we're doing is having the garbage control go in there and just like throw everything all over the floor. And as long as the things that throw on the floor are invisible, then we don't really care. So that is my theory as to what was happening, and my theory as to why that was sufficient to make it work. Oh, but I just see something new, is the overlays are not always consistently on top, and I wanted to make a note about that. Overlays aren't always on top of skills. I'm not sure there's actually a thing to do about that. It turns out it did it again. The basic premise is that you're supposed to be able to put a label on top of a shortcut here, but there is a bug that causes the shortcut to always be on top in whatever window it is in. So that solution that we saw a couple weeks ago was to have two windows, and we are seeing it not always being brought forward. Is it when I'm clicking on this? Maybe it's when I'm clicking this. Yes! It's when I'm clicking. Oh my goodness, of course. So when we click the anthem, it brings the background window, the main window, with the shortcuts in front of the labels. Now, what I don't remember is if the basic window class has a like bring to front method, which is what you would kind of expect in a lot of windowing systems. Activates a window bringing it to front. Cool. So, if we could call activate anytime we are clicked on, solution, call the activate function of the label window after the anthem is clicked, question mark. I'm not sure that'll work, but it seems plausible. Okay. Let's go ahead and just say to do changes. Oh, this was the fix for... Yes. Okay. So, switching themes mid-combat seems to cause UI glitch until the plugins load. Yes, it did do that. Mostly because of my insistence on using the constructor as a constructor instead of as the whatever it is. And ignoring the initializer function. So we're good there. We're going to go ahead and commit that note. Fixed theme switching problem. Okay, so all of that, these variables go to here, and then we go ahead and call refresh effect display during the restart process, and also we hide the window when it's being destructed. We should probably make a note about why we did that. It's a little bit wonky. Let's go ahead and come back in. So in here, I think we don't need those anymore. But note, hide the window first. Otherwise, the skill shortcuts can appear briefly at 0, screen coordinates 0. Cool. So, little note to ourselves why we're doing that. 6 months from now, we'll be very pleased to not have to rediscover why that's there. Okay, so that's all of what we need for fixing the theme switching problem. Nice. Okay, so we have a replicatable problem here, which is the overlays showing whether something is a lesser or a greater or both lesser or greater will go underneath the window when you click on it. And let's see, where can you click? Like everywhere. Okay, so first of all, most of this should not want mouse clicking. So what do we call that in the wants mouse, no, mouse. Set mouse visible. What we want to do is set mouse visible to false for anything that shouldn't be clicked on. And that should prevent the window from raising for those cases. So let's go ahead and come on in to, nope, the other one, to the buff window and come in to start where it all begins. Oh my goodness, I have gone over. Okay, this will be the last thing that I'm poking around at, I think. So if you've got any last minute thoughts, comments, questions, concerns about Minstrel Buff, coding plugins, plugins in general, LOTRO in general, let's go ahead and start getting those into the chat. Otherwise, we'll pick them up next week. And okay, so what do we have? We have the self.window, which is the main window. And we also have the overlay window. So the window itself has set mouse visible to false. Excellent. But all of those things that parent themselves to the window maybe need that as well. So let's come on in here. Ballad background, set mouse visible false. Great. Anthem, set mouse visible false. Great. Ballad effect displays. Self.ballad effect displays. I set mouse visible to false. Cool. Okay. What else? War speech time displays. Let's go ahead and get that going. Self.war speech time displays. I set visible. Nope. Set mouse visible to false. Okay. What else do we have? Anthem effect displays. Need that too. Anthem effect displays. Now, I say it needed it. I feel like I've checked into this, and you do kind of have to do this on each control. You can't just do it on top level control, like visibility itself, to hide everything. And that way you can have just a little portion of the UI be have mouse visibility, but not the whole thing. But we're gonna test this in not too long here. Okay, anthem time displays, self.anthem time displays, set mouse visible. Okay, next, in combat time display, self. Actually, I'm going to leave that for a moment. Let's go ahead and reload this. Great. So, well, I am already disappointed because I thought that was not going to do it. But we can see the that timer bar does need this. So self.in combat display, set mouse visible, false. And the priority shortcut does need to have mouse visibility. Alright, so the Ballad effect displays has a set mouse visible to false. And the Ballad backgrounds. But we're still able to click on them, which tells me that's an incomplete solution. That makes me sad. Can you set a Z order of less than 0? Let's find out. So self.window set a Z order -1. Okay, it's not reinterpreting that as the largest integer. Excellent. Oh, that could be the solution. Now, all of those things that I just said no on mouse visibility, they should probably be no on mouse visibility anyway. That's not wasted. But remembering that when you click on a window and it brings it to front, that's an operation of windows that are at Z level 0. If you are positive numbers, you'll always be on top of Z level 0, which is why that overlay can't be 1. Otherwise, the L's and the G's and the L plus G's still show up even when you've got your map open, or some dialogue. They just show up on top of that. It's very not good. But the buff window here had been at 0. Now that means that you will never be able to bring it on top of other stuff, but you're also in charge of having that other stuff on top of it. So I think that's a reasonable compromise for right now, but it might be that this overlay thing doesn't work. Although we only need to do it well, yeah, okay. Note, if overlay is disabled, use Z order equals 0 for buff window. If overlay is enabled, use Z order equals -1 for a buff window. Okay, that'll actually fix that, I think. So overlays aren't always on top of skills. This is the solution for that, I think, is just get the buff window off of 0 where the raising and lowering happens, and then it's just not a problem. With the side effect of, I don't know what being at Z order -1 means, I normally don't write plugins that go there. So I'll keep an eye out on this while I'm playing around it with this week and make sure that's not an unreasonable thing to do. Okay, so activate function, that was going to be overkill. Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and take a snapshot of that change as well. So we've got this, we've got the Z order, and that's really it. Fix issue where LG overlays were where buff window was raised above LG overlays. Perfect. And that's the one line change. Like Arthur says, Z order -1 tears a hole in the space-time continuum. That may be, but if it fixes my problem. All right, and then we'll go ahead and commit this separately. Hide multiple, set mouse visible false for multiple buff window things. Controls. Okay, and false, 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 false. Good. We're going to push those things out. Great. Okay, that's awesome. So what we have here is the desire left to do is those overlays, the L and the G, I think I want to give people the ability to turn them off. They might seem a little intrusive for some players. For me, it's incredibly useful because I just cannot keep track of, like, is this lesser or greater symbol? Is this lesser or greater symbol? I just don't have it in my head yet. And I hear for some people who have colorblind issues that some of these are not very distinct from a deactivated version of itself, a grayscale version of itself, which I could totally get. And so the L or the G for lesser or greater, or the combination one, like, is that the combination one? I could not tell you without the L plus G. And so, oh, this is why I wasn't seeing it until we had the Priority Anthem thing, because I wasn't really clicking on this window very often. So, cool, it was always there from the overlays. Priority Anthem did not break anything. Okay, yeah, so with the Priority Anthem queue, I care a little bit less because all else being equal, it's going to keep track of those lessers and graders for me and only give me a grader if I need it. But I think it's still beneficial for me to have L plus G, but maybe not for everyone. So I want to have an option to disable that. And if we're doing that, we'll be able to just update this Z order so that we're only using Z order equals -1 with the subsequent hole and space-time continuum if we need to. Same thing with the priority queue itself. Some people, I think, just don't want a plugin to tell them what to do, even if they're the one who told the plugin what to tell them to do. That's totally fine. We actually, as a plugin, do less work if we don't care about that Priority Anthem queue. Like, we're not constantly, we're not repeatedly checking, oh, what anthems do you have, what's going on? So having an option to turn that off, I think, is very good. And getting that major ballad name in French and German, that's going to be a real fast thing. And then finally, the Priority Anthem just hanging off here in space, I think, is aesthetically unpleasing to me. So I think I need to extend for those themes that have frames. I want to extend the frame to give a spot for that. Some of these do not have that, in which case it's just add a border for it or something. Give it some sort of sense like it is intentionally there. Extend the treble staff or something. I'm not 100% sure up here is the right place for it, but down, if it were on the same row as the other anthems, I feel like it would just visually look like it was another anthem that you had and not the next anthem to go. So, I mean, practically speaking, what I want is to be over here on the left with an arrow button or something, or maybe it's on the right with an arrow showing it's coming in from the right, but I'm not sure about that either. So, if you have any thoughts on what that should look like, let me know. I mean, worst case, I ship it without that, and people just have a skill hanging there, and maybe that's okay. But I think we can do better than that. Cool. So those are the 4 things that I want to do, and I think we'll be able to do many of them soon. Do I need to do any of these before shipping, though? Just the major ballad in German and French. Get those updated strings. Get updated anthem effects from German. Check for French. Well, I'm in there. I would say, actually, we could ship without those because I will be off next week and the week after for visiting family, and yeah, probably just ship with the language changes, but not much else. And we'll come back in and fix those up for the next version. And anyone who doesn't want these things on, they just don't update. That'll be fine. So, cool. I'll probably be doing a release of this in the very near future of this week then. And well, another week of finishing up, tidying this up, and then moving on to other plugins. I don't actually know if I have a plan for that, but I know the deed tracker has been languishing for 4 to 12 months, so that's probably my next stop. Is I know there's some deeds in the deed tracker that people are like, I can't kill any critters in Gundabad, please remove this, and I'm like, yeah, I've never been to Gundabad except during missions. Neat. Okay, that is the end of the coding session of tonight. I haven't seen any other questions popping into chat, so I think we're going to go ahead and decide that is the end of tonight. Let's see. Is that true? Yeah. That was awesome. We've covered a lot of ground today. We've fixed some bugs that I thought might haunt me for a long time. We were able to delve into what's going on, why is it going on, and just make some very small changes to squash those bugs, which is great. I love being able to fix bugs as well as make new features. And we are in sight of the shipping line. That's very cool. All right. Well, that is all we are going to cover today. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of LOTRO plugins. I do hope to see you here in 3 weeks' time, because I'm off next week and the week after. And until then, keep plugging along. All right, bye-bye now.